If my husband finds out, I'll lose everything. But Henry, oh Henry, why didn't I just say no? I don't even know where to start. Maybe it was the first time I saw him step onto the stage, or maybe it was all the little moments that came after. All I know is that it wasn't supposed to happen. It shouldn't have. My name is Joy. I'm 42, a theatre director with over 15 years of experience. I married Chief Jude, one of the wealthiest patrons of the arts in Lagos. To the world, I have it all: money, a loving husband, and a career people dream about. But beneath all the glitz, there's me, a woman who made a mistake. It started 3 months ago. My husband had just returned from one of his business trips, and as usual, he came with surprises. This time, it was his son, Henry Joe. Meet Henry, my boy, he said proudly. He's finally back from London. You remember I told you he's studying acting? I remember smiling politely. Of course, I remember. Henry, welcome. Henry wasn't what I expected. Tall, confident, and with a kind of charm that fills the room, he reminded me of the men I used to dream about in my younger days. But I told myself, self-doubt was where it ended. After all, I was his stepmother. Henry joined my latest production as the lead actor. At first, I kept my distance, professional and detached. But the more we worked together, the more I noticed the little things. The way he listened so intently when I gave notes, the way he laughed at my jokes, the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. It was the night of the heavy rain that changed everything. Rehearsals had ended, and everyone had gone home. The thunder outside was deafening, and I stayed back to review the script. I didn't even realize Henry was still there until I heard his voice behind me. Auntie Joy, you shouldn't stay out this late, he said softly. I turned and saw him standing by the door, drenched from running in the rain. Something about the way he said it, his voice so gentle, so protective, made me feel something I hadn't felt in years. Henry, what are you still doing here? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. I was waiting for you. I couldn't let you go home alone in this rain, he replied, stepping closer. I should have told him to go. I should have walked away, but instead, I stayed. We talked that night about the play, about life, about dreams I hadn't spoken of in years. And then, just as I was about to leave, he said something that stopped me in my tracks. You deserve more than this life, Auntie Joy. More than just being the chief's trophy. My heart pounded in my chest. I don't even know why his words cut so deep, but they did. I stood there speechless, and before I knew it, he took my hand. It was just a touch, but it unleashed something in me that I couldn't control. And that's how it started. That night, I went home with so many thoughts racing through my head. Chief was already asleep when I got in, snoring softly in the master bedroom. I stood there for a while, staring at him. He looked so peaceful, so content, and it made me feel even worse. What was I doing? What was I feeling? Henry was my stepson, my husband's son, but no matter how much I told myself it was wrong, the memory of his hand brushing against mine wouldn't leave me alone. The next day, I did what I thought was best. I avoided Henry completely at rehearsals, keeping our interactions short and professional. When he asked for feedback, I waved him off and told him to focus on the director's notes from last week. But Henry wasn't one to give up easily. Auntie Joy, he said one evening after everyone had left, are you upset with me? I froze, pretending to be busy with the props. Upset? Why would I be upset? I asked. You've been acting different, he said, his voice slow but steady. Did I do something wrong? I turned to face him, determined to put an end to whatever this thing was. Henry, listen to me. Whatever you think is happening here, it needs to stop. I am your father's wife. Do you understand? He stared at me for a moment, his eyes searching mine. But is that all you are, just his wife? Because every time I look at you, I see someone who's been hiding for so long, she doesn't even recognize herself anymore. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. How did he see through me so clearly? Henry, don't, I said, my voice shaking, don't do this. But he didn't stop. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. You don't have to pretend with me, Auntie Joy. I see you. I didn't know what to say. For years, I had buried part of myself, trying to fit into the world Chief had built for me. The perfect wife, the perfect director, always controlled, always composed. And now, here was this young man, tearing down the walls I had spent years building. That night, I left the theater without another word. I needed to think, to breathe, but the more I tried to push him out of my mind, the more I realized how much space he had already taken up. The next few weeks were a blur of emotions. The hustle continued, the play was coming together, but my interactions with Henry were strained. I could feel his eyes on me during every scene, every note, every break, and I hated myself for the way my heart reacted every time. Then came the dress rehearsal. Henry was phenomenal. His performance was raw, emotional, and so real it left the entire cast in awe. But for me, it was something else entirely. Watching him on stage, I wasn't seeing my stepson or my lead actor. I was seeing the man who had awakened something in me that I thought was long dead. After the rehearsal, he cornered me backstage. "Auntie Joy, we need to talk," he said firmly. "Henry, I don't think that's a good idea," I replied, trying to walk past him. He blocked my path, his expression serious. "This isn't just about me, and you know it. You feel it too, so why are you running?" I stared at him, my heart pounding. "Henry, please. This isn't right." "Then tell me you don't feel anything," he said, his voice soft but insistent. "Look me in the eye and tell me it's all in my head." I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out, because no matter how much I wanted to deny it, he was right. And in that moment, standing there with him in the dimly lit hallway, I knew I had crossed a line I could never uncross. It didn't take long for the whispers to start. People are sharp, they notice everything, even the things you try to bury beneath professionalism and polite smiles. Henry and I were careful, or at least we thought we were. No stolen glances during rehearsals, no lingering conversations after the others left. We were back to being the perfect stepmother and her talented stepson. But no matter how much we tried to act normal, the tension was there, pulling us closer with every passing day. Then came the night everything fell apart. The play premiered to a packed audience. It was flawless. Applause thundered through the hall as the curtain dropped, and I stood backstage, proud of what we'd created. Chief was in the front row, clapping the loudest, a wide smile on his face as he congratulated Henry after the show. But as I watched them, my chest tightened. I couldn't shake the guilt anymore. Chief was so proud, so supportive, and here I was, standing between him and his son. What had I done? Later that night, during the after-party, Henry found me on the balcony, away from the noise and laughter. "You've been avoiding me," he said, leaning against the railing. "I'm trying to fix this mess," I replied quietly. "Joy," he said, dropping the auntie for the first time. His voice was soft, almost pleading. "You can't keep running. What do you really want?" I turned to face him, and for the first time, I allowed myself to speak the truth. "I don't know. I just know this isn't it. This can't be it, Henry. It's not fair to your father, to you, or even to me." He looked at me, his eyes filled with something I couldn't name, maybe sadness, maybe regret. "So, that's it?" I nodded, tears threatening to spill. "It has to be. We can't keep doing this. You're young, Henry. You'll move on, find someone who can give you what you deserve. And me. I need to find my way back to myself." The silence between us was heavy, but it was also final. That night, I went home and told Chief everything, every single thing. He didn't say a word as I spoke. When I was done, he simply stood up and walked out of the room. I don't know if he'll ever forgive me, and honestly, I don't expect him to. Henry left the country a few weeks later, and we haven't spoken since. Looking back, I realized I wasn't just running from the affair. I was running from myself. I had spent so many years trying to be perfect, to live up to other people's expectations, that I lost sight of who I was. And in that emptiness, I made a terrible mistake. My advice to women is this: know yourself, love yourself. Don't let the weight of expectations make you lose your way. If there's something missing in your life, don't look for it in places that will only bring you pain. Instead, take a step back and rediscover what truly makes you happy, because at the end of the day, no secret is worth the cost of losing yourself or the people you love.